Betty Olson-Jones, president of the Oakland Education Association. And we're here to try and stop the shipments of war materials here at the port, and also to ask the port, demand that the port pay their fair share to the Oakland schools. Right now they don't pay a penny. They don't pay anything for social services, nothing for the schools. And they're bringing in approximately $33 billion a year. So we think that there's no reason whatsoever that they should not be paying something toward the schools and social services.
It seems there are a lot of teachers out here. I mean, you mobilized your membership here?
Well, we wish we had even more, but there are a lot of teachers out here demanding that the port stop war shipments and pay their share to the schools.
So the teachers are pretty angry about the fact that money's being spent on the war and money's being made at the port, but it's really not going into the Oakland schools. What are the conditions in the Oakland schools?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? The conditions in the Oakland schools are getting worse and worse and worse. Understate takeover and No Child Left Behind. The focus is on high-stakes testing, and the focus is on getting higher scores on your tests, but there is little attention paid to the deteriorating conditions in the schools. So you have schools where teachers are being fired for supposedly irregularities on testing, and yet students are not given the kind of conditions that they need in order to really succeed. Classes are being cut, electives are cut, while the focus is on language arts and math to the exclusion of everything else. Some of the poorer schools, you have a revolving door of teachers. There's about a 50% turnover every year. They can't keep good teachers because the conditions are so poor that teachers don't want to be there.
And it seems like there's a lot of money for war, $500 billion. I mean, is that?
$500 billion, and apparently every week $2 billion goes to war, and yet we're told over and over again that there's no money for schools. Now that's really hard to believe. Clearly there's money to be sent to fight a war, but if there's no money for schools, then we demand that change.
You think other unions should be out here as actively as the teachers?
Absolutely. I know the ILWU is out here, the leadership is out here supporting this, and other unions definitely. I think the Central Labor Council, next time we need to come down with hundreds of unions and stop this.
Hi, my name is Mary Lozier, and I'm a school teacher in Oakland, and I'm an executive board member of the Oakland Education Association.
And your union has quite a big presence here on this picket line. How did this come about?
Well, a number of us were members of the coalition to help organize this, but probably most importantly, besides the fact that we are very much against the war, is the fact that we have been wanting to get port dollars for Oakland schools for a long time. The Port of Oakland contributes nothing to Oakland schools and to the children of Oakland. And my own personal interest, I guess, developed because I found out that San Francisco Airport contributes to San Bruno schools. So it's like, well, why isn't the Port of Oakland, which is this huge presence in Oakland, not contributing to Oakland schools? And I mean, they make $33 billion a year. 1% of that would return local control. Reduce class sizes. I mean, fix Oakland schools. And I spent many, many years teaching here in West Oakland. These kids live with the port 24/7. The noise, the smells, and I mean, they're getting nothing from it. It's ridiculous that some of the worst schools in Oakland are in the shadow of the Port of Oakland. So I went to the Port Commission. I went to the Port Commission this week and spoke. And they talked about how they felt a social consciousness to help the people of Oakland. And it's like, well, then do it.
Do they have the money?
Oh, they are rolling in money. It's really the cash cow of Oakland. But it's not just that. As I have been leafleting for the demonstrations here, I have just been interacting with, I'm an Oakland native, grew up here, went to Oakland schools, teach in Oakland schools, have a child in Oakland schools. I have been interacting with just ordinary Oaklanders all over Oakland, and without exception, they are in support of the port giving money to Oakland schools. We have wonderful kids here in Oakland, and they are getting a raw deal. Now, when we talk about priorities, let's talk about them.
So why are you here today?
I'm here because the war in Iraq needs to end, and we need money for schools, not war, and we need a positive future of education, not corporate attacks on the well-being of the people of Oakland. So we have folks from a lot of different unions and community groups and standing out here against war shipments to say, let's end this war.
Was there any disagreement in your union about supporting this demonstration?
No, the teachers in Oakland want to stand up for a future where money goes to the schools, not the war. Yeah, we're pretty unified that we don't want, civilians in Iraq getting killed, young folks that have been recruited into the U.S. Army getting killed. We want a future where the United States actually has democracy, not these state takeovers of our schools, not the cuts to education that we're seeing.
What does the state take over the schools?
The democracy of Oakland has been violated because we have an appointed state administrator running our schools where our school board has no authority, our elected officials have no authority, and our community is not in charge of the schools. This needs to be ended, and Oakland needs to be in charge of its schools and get some more resources and, get some real programs for our students instead of all this money being funneled off, like what's going on with the war right now.
I'm Bill Balderston. I teach at Castlemont High School, and I'm a member of the executive board of the Oakland Education Association.
And your union seems to have a big presence here. What's going on?
Well, we see that there's a direct linkage between not only the funding issue, which deprives public education and other public services of the kinds of resources that we need, but the fact that our students are being used as cannon fodder in this war. And I can say personally, I have former students who are over there, and it's of great concern to me. And we feel that we need to highlight the actual physical implementation of the material going over there and the role that the port plays. And on top of that, the port should be a resource for this community in terms of funding for public education and other youth-oriented services.
What does the privatization have to do with this demonstration?
Well, I think that privatization throughout the country, especially not only in the private industry and the contracting out of many jobs and the downsizing of many jobs, but in the public sector and in public education in particular, the attempt to, at the very least, introduce corporate agendas and at the extreme to actually privatize, have for-profit schools, again draws a very strong connection. And I'd add, by the way, that the question of privatization in terms of Iraq is a striking issue as well, where part of the drive of this war is an ideological commitment to privatize sectors of that economy, especially the oil industry. And I'll add, by the way, our union and others here are supporting the upcoming tour of the Iraqi labor representatives who are coming to the United States.
Isn't SSA involved in Iraq?
Yes, SSA is involved in Iraq, and again, it's something that we feel needs to be highlighted because it's part of our community. Often the port and the people who do business in the port try to pretend that they are a totally separate entity away from the community, and we want to make clear there's a very direct connection.
We want to stop the war. We want some of this money from the Port of Oakland to come into the city of Oakland, for the community's needs and also for schools. I was at a school yesterday and there wasn't a computer in their classroom. You see what I mean? We need money from the Port of Oakland for the schools. It's time for the port to stop being run by the state and run by the city. Not only that, low-income houses. They're building all these townhouses downtown and all along the waterfront. They're not building no low-income affordable housing. There ain't no senior citizen building is built downtown along the waterfront. I live in the Fruitville district. You know what I mean? I would like to live downtown, me and my wife. I worked all my life. You know what I mean? I'm an ex-slave sharecropper. You know what I mean? From the plantation of Alabama. You know what I mean? And I can't live in a senior citizen building downtown along the waterfront.
So where's the money going?
The money is going to different parts of the government, to the state. The state is taking a lot of the money. The port is not supposed to be run by the state of California. It's supposed to be run by the city. Mayor Davis said in the 20s, he said, Oakland, number one, they want to see as many jobs at the Port of Oakland for the Oakland peoples. That's not happening today. You know what I mean? It's not happening for the peoples, you know what I mean? Okay,
Do
all
you think that's why the longshoremen are supporting this picket line?
well, the longshoremen are supporting us. We went and met with them, okay, last week and everything. So we believe that they're going to honor. You know, I retired from the Teamsters also, as well as the longshoremen. And I closed down years ago. I closed down Moscone Center with one picket sign. You know what I mean? The one thing about real union men and women, they will honor the union picket signs. They will honor the picket lines.
Okay, thank you. What's your name?
Reverend Henry Williams Sr.
My name is Orlando Johnson. I'm a member of Oakland Community Action Network out of Oakland. I'm also a Green Party member. And we just here basically to say that, you know, the war and the education they're doing with the port is really senseless. You know what I mean? We really need the mayor to come out here and really to support us and get real issues out here. We really need city council people out here, city attorneys, so more of the issues that's going on to come on with facts, not based upon opinions and hypothetics. The port is taking so much money and is not bringing back into the community. All the cents and dollars that's going back in there is not going back into Oakland. So our fight is be fair, give us some of the money, let us get our education so we don't have to fund the war. See, if you look at if it's 500,000 people in Oakland, if you take $1 from each person, that's like 500,000. That 500,000 on the percentage of taxes is not going back to the people, it's going back to the correct politicians.
Walk in here, the police stopped me from coming in. I was supposed to get clearance, but I couldn't get to that person, so I had to lug my camera about probably half a mile.
And who are you with?
Channel 7.
So ABC Channel 7 was prevented from covering this demonstration?
Yeah, I heard that all media was prevented from bringing their vans in.
What was this, a national security issue?
Sort of seemed like it, but it was a demonstration, a picket, so I don't know why they were, you know, stopping everybody.
What they have in here, they have an information to picket line. The problem is the longshoremen can't cross. We're not going to dishonor the picket line. So we're waiting for arbitration. Once they declare it one way or the other, pro or con, then we will or we won't go to work.
What are the issues at this picket line?
It's the war issue. They say they want to bring them home.
What did your local or union think about that?
Well, our local didn't speak on it. I'm not a longshoreman. I'm a clerk. It's ILWU. But local 10 position is they'll honor the picket line. They didn't elaborate as far as the war is concerned.
Okay, thank you. What's your name?
My name's Andy Walker.
Would you go to work or would you go home and give up a day's work and a day's wages to help demonstrators make a point about the war in Iraq? That's the choice longshoremen were faced with when they arrived here at the Port of Oakland this evening. Longshoremen arriving for the evening shift got as far as the front gate and stopped. They had come to load and unload ships at a Port of Oakland dock, but didn't know what to do about the picket line they found blocking their way. Anti-war demonstrators and social activists blocked the gate, saying they wanted to stop shipments of war materials to Iraq and also demand that the Port of Oakland charge shippers' fees to support Oakland schools.
We want to see an end to the war. We want to see an end to the bleeding from this country of billions of dollars every week going to kill innocent people in Iraq. And we see that that shift needs to go back into our schools and into our communities.
We over here at SSA, and they got the picket line out here.
The longshore workers, no strangers to social causes, called union officers and cooled their heels in the street until an arbitrator could arrive. He did and decided there was no legal reason to observe the picket line, but also said they were free to consider safety as a reason not to cross.
We don't feel comfortable being escorted by the police. Because last time, the police beat and shot people.
That's right.
I don't want to get shot.
That was a reference to an April 2003 demonstration at the port when police fired rubber bullets, wooden dowels, and tear gas at demonstrators. A number were injured. And that was apparently reason enough this time for workers to just say no and go home.
So they're going to let you go home?
Well, they haven't really said, but I'm going home.
So how do you feel about missing a day's work?
It's for a good cause. I don't like it, but I never did like the war. 18-year-old kids, you know, losing their life for, you know, a senseless war.
Even Mayor Ron Dellums seemed to agree. In a letter to activists, he wrote, "It is my honor to join with you in calling for an end to this war that has caused great suffering and death to Iraqi people and men and women of our armed forces." It was a little victory for the determined protesters. Most longshoremen left, losing a day's work to make a point about the war. Our phone calls to the Port of Oakland for response to today's demonstration were not returned.
What do you say? How many Iraqis did you kill today? APL, what do you know?
happened was the employer said they're not paying anybody for the day because we're refusing to go through the picket line. So we're all going home. It was a successful picket. We support the opposition to this war, and we're not crossing the picket line.
Did they want you to cross the picket line?
Of course they did.
What did they say?
We've been through this before. In 2003, they sent the police after longshoremen and the anti-war pickets, and we held strong. We're not crossing the picket line. This is a message to longshore workers all around the country that if it can happen here in Oakland, they can do it in other ports too. We need to put an end to the war. And this is the way to do it. Longshoremen refuse to work these ships.
The police here say that they're not letting in the media with their vans because it's a safety issue. What do you think about that?
Well, obviously they don't want to get the message out to people. And that's why they're not letting the media in.
I'm Larry Shoup with the Green Party, National Writers Union, UAW 1981. Also committees of correspondence for democracy and socialism. I'm outraged at this imperialist war, illegal war, racist war. It amounts to a war crime, a massive war crime against the Iraqi people, and I'm totally against that. And of course some Americans are dying too, but something like, according to Lancelet magazine, journal, which is a British medical journal, who did interviews with Iraqi people on a massive scale, found out that over 650,000 Iraqis have been killed. Of course, as we know, there's been torture, massive torture. So it's a massive war crime, and the American people need to rise up to stop the war crime, and that's the only way it's going to end. These compromising, sellout politicians that we have, both Democrat and Republican, aren't going to stop the war without the people's pressure. So we're out here to put the people's pressure on, to notify them we want to rise up to stop this war.
Well, the majority of people are against the war. Why do you think they continue to vote for more war funding?
Because the American ruling class wants to control the oil of the Middle East. This is all about oil, and control for oil for several reasons, of course. Oil because it's very lucrative to make money for the big corporations, and also as a way to control third countries like China, Japan, Europe, that need the Middle East oil. And so if the United States controls that, it's a strategic move, a geopolitical move to try to control the entire world. So they don't want to give that up. The Democrats are the more liberal part of the ruling class behind the Democrats. Their Mickey Mouse pull-out plan was in a year or more pull out half the troops, still keep the bases, still keep a lot of the training troops, and keep all the contractors. There's nothing said about contractors, and contractors are almost as much, U.S. contractors paid by our tax money, who are above the law in Iraq. They're almost as many as the troops. There's 120-some thousand contractors, ex-military, etc., armed people who have, in many cases, killed and tortured Iraqis and then just leave the country without any prosecution. There's a lot of outrageous things about this war, a lot of reason why people should be out here militantly picketing against this war.
Mayor Dellum sent a letter to your committee, or a committee that's organizing this. What's that all about?
Well, Mayor Dellums, of course, is concerned about maintaining the OEA support. The Oakland Educational Association is with us on this, and that's one of the constituencies of the Democratic Party. So because the OEA is supporting this, Dellums feels like he needs to at least give some kind of lip service to it. So he sent us a letter saying, "Dear Port Action, I'm against the war too." And that's all he said.
You think this can expand?
Yeah, very, very much so. I think it expands. If it can be communicated that everything is linked, that this is linked to poverty, crime, young black oppression, Latin oppression, all this is linked. Immigration, everything. And we all the same. We all working class people. We don't want to be divided by racism, who you sleep with, or all that. We want to come together and try to feed our family, bottom line. And we want to make changes. We want to have more to say, not just a dollar raise. We want to have more to say what goes on with our jobs. So that's pretty much.
So why do you think they prevented the media from really covering this thing? They said it was a safety issue. They prevented the media vans from coming in here. What's going on?
When you see the Oakland police stopped them way out there, it would have been a long walk for a lot of them with their cameras. So I think that was a big deal for them. But I think they just don't want it to spread because people are upset. A lot of people are upset. But somehow it can't be linked together. And when I say I speak freely now, it's my own opinion. I think a lot of times the people at top that represent some of the unions are really handcuffed by regulations and the war on terror. The war on terror has really been very damaging to us. Anything you do, you anti-American now. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, So.
Well, some would say that this is a national security issue that's threatening the security of America, these kind of demonstrations.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think you have a better chance at getting robbed at the ATM machine by somebody that's out of work than you do get blown up by a terrorist. So I think the bigger problem is in right around the ports. The ports are wealthy, but right around here, we drive around those people every day in West Oakland that's out of work and that's hungry and, and forced to do things that maybe they wouldn't want to do.
Why is there such a great disparity of wealth? You have this richest ports, one of the richest ports in the country, a rich city, and yet you have people who can't afford housing. The schools are falling apart. The teachers were active here. What's going on?
It's capitalism.
Yep, he got it.
It's that the bottom line. It boils down to capitalism, free market. You can make as much as you want to make. They even sell the dream to us, to the working class people. But the reality to it, everybody's not going to be able to make it to the top. I don't care how much you work, with gas prices being high. But the bottom line is capitalism and free market. Because everybody don't have this. That'd be fine if everybody had the same opportunity. But if you go to school in Oakland compared to Walnut Creek, you're not going to get the same education. Then some people with money can even afford private school. So their kids at a way advantage than others.
Were you surprised that the teachers union was active in organizing this protest and supporting it?
No, not at all. I know the teachers union are very knowledgeable what's going on because they see the classrooms when they got to beg for pencils. My son is in school. And I'm like, is this private school or public school? Because every time I'm up there, they kind of begging for money now. Talking about donating money, and we don't have pencils and papers. So that the teachers know. They're in the front line. They see the kids coming in, and they know. They know it's a war going on.
So the longshoremen you think are supporting this opposition to the war?
I don't support the war. I can't speak on.
But the sentiment of the ILWU is against the war.
I think so. In my opinion, I think the ILWU is definitely against the war.
You think it's going to reach a tipping point where people in this country say enough is enough and they start to really mobilize to really stop this war?
I hope so. I hope it comes very soon, not to where we just completely defensive, but right now when we can still put an offense together. We don't want to wait until we totally beaten. Right now we need to start with a little movement like this. Maybe tonight we can have more people where we can have an offensive plan, not where we just work on defense. Of course, everybody gonna bond together when we don't have nothing, like in the Great Depression days. I wasn't there, but I assume everybody had to come together when you won a lot of your gangs and stuff like that back in the 1930s. But I hope we can do it very soon.
You think working people have the power to stop the war in this country?
Definitely. As long as they don't keep getting divided by racial issues, which is a thing they love to keep going. You know, that's a white issue, that's a black issue. We all workers, that's what we have in common. And as people do well and have economic opportunity, the race thing kind of leaves anyway. It works itself out. I mean, of course, when you poor, you want to blame somebody for your poverty. So, you know.
You think that's the reason for the attack on immigrants and scapegoating of them?
Yeah. I mean, even through history, that's why a lot of the Irish and Italians back in the days hated a lot of the blacks because they used the black slaves to break the lines. You know, and even a lot of the blacks have a lot of anger towards the immigrants from Mexico because they feel like they're taking jobs. So it's never been a thing of it's always been developed from economic reasons that cultures and different people battle each other, in my opinion. So I mean, if you kind of fix that problem, you change situations.
Well, the Bush government and the people who run this country and run the world are probably pretty unhappy about this thing and are afraid that it's going to spread. You think it is going to spread?
I hope so. That's all. I mean, I hope so. I mean, for the future of my kids and just all working class people, I hope it do spread. So I want to add something, and it's not just Bush. You know, it's not just Bush. I mean, that's been a rally cry. Bush. It's just a system that we have to think about changing. That you can just come in, that a hospital, BART, these shipping companies, PG&E, that they can make profit off something that's a necessity to human beings. A grocery store, we have to have food and gas and public transportation. How can somebody make a profit off that? You understand? I mean, it's not just Bush that we have to change. We have to change a lot of things here.
So you're saying it's a systemic problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what should be done to confront a systemic problem?
I mean, first you have to have like just working class, and maybe some type of a party that really represents the working people. I think that will be a start. I mean, from Republican to Democrat, I don't see them changing minimum wage too much. So I don't see a big difference between those two parties. I feel like there's no party really representing all the people that's out here. I mean, school should be a priority, but it's not. They're spending billions of dollars on the war, but not but not on schools.
They seem to have an unlimited amount, $500 billion for the war.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, any war that's been fought here has always been a rally cry. From when they had the war with the Spanish, it was remember the Maine. In this country always come off as a victim. It always comes off as a victim because, I mean, if you don't create an enemy, you can't fight a war. You got to win the people's minds first. If you don't see a person as an enemy, how you going to fight them? How the majority of the people going to support them if it's not an enemy? And I have, thanks to the ILWU, had an opportunity to travel and go different places in the world. And everybody I go in the world is the same as me. I might not understand the language, but they want to feed their kids, they want a good job, and they want shelter. I see some of the same traits as here, like Brazil. When I go to the poor neighborhoods, the people are darker skinned. And when I go to some of the affluent areas, some of the people look mostly European, so some of the same traits as here in the United States.
But you're saying these issues are basically working class issues for all workers all around the world.
For all over, it's for working class people. So it's not an idea of just, forget China and save jobs here and bring the American troops home. No, it's like protect the American troops and the Iraqi troops. I mean, because they all working class people. Because if you fall into that idea, save American jobs, then you fall into the idea of what Bush and America, that it's about America. It's not. We don't need borders. Borders don't benefit working class people. It only benefit the rich. And
they have the freedom to move their capital back and forth.
Exactly. So you can't cross, but the corporation can go wherever they want to go, and make money. So I mean, I really have to question the whole idea of what America is. But when it's time to go to war, then it's America. Your son and my son liable to be over there. But once again, I want to thank the teachers for coming out here, and just a small showing was able to shut down the ports. It's pretty amazing.